Morning Talk with Siki Mgabadeli.
On SAFM 104 to 107. Let me just repeat Dineo's contact details. If you're having any property-related problems and that you need some assistance with, her number is 084 783 4636 084 783 4636, or you can email Dineo at askdineo@dineoproperties.com. Right, we're talking now about health and leadership, ensuring that you take care of your body, your mind and spirit, and how that can assist you in your leadership position. There's a pressing need to unlock the human potential of our people at individual and collective level, and we need to ensure that success and effectiveness by focusing on our mind, body, health, and of course our well-being. And we'll take calls on this one on 0891104207, SMSs to 34701. We're in conversation with Scholastica Sylvan Kimaryo, who is founder and CEO of Maadili Consulting and Lifestyle Coaching. She's also former UNDP's Deputy Regional Director for Africa. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. One of the things that I loved and that you'd said about, where you can see the toll that being in high and powerful position is being exacted on somebody is to look at our presidents, for example. They are the most classic and most visible demonstration of this phenomenon. You see how quickly they start to grey.
Yes, absolutely. And it's not just in Africa, I watched Bill Clinton.
Yes.
Age very publicly.
Look at Obama.
Look at Obama, so this is real. This is real. And from my own life and work, I worked for 31 years with the United Nations at different levels of responsibility. And I could feel that, there's a very strong link between health and one's ability to lead.
Yeah.
But then I also realized that in many leadership training programs, it's only now that the issue of stress is an important component of business and public life is being recognized.
Yeah.
We now know that at least 80% of diseases, the contributing factors to diseases is stress.
Yeah.
And yet it's not really well addressed. We also know, and just this week, actually, or last week, there has been information to show the link between the high attrition rate. People are absent from work. And it's usually health related, and stress is an important part of it.
Yeah.
And really, I was very happy to see that I'm not doing any advertising for them, but I was very encouraged to see that Discovery, the medical aid, is encouraging people to do exercises, as in is giving people incentives to look after their bodies, which is very important. And I think the other part is then to link the body with the mind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a stigma, though, around someone who is a leader? You're in this high-profile position. You've been thrust into it. For you then to turn around and say, actually, I'm stressed. Do you think there's a stigma around that?
I know there is a stigma. Speaking for myself, and also from observation. First of all, the stigma arises actually from somehow society's lack of knowledge about the importance of mental health. And therefore, people feel if you admit you have stress, then you have a mental health problem, then you're crazy, then you're unemployable.
You have no ability to lead. We have to now overthrow you or whatever.
Exactly. And not realizing that actually stress is both a cause and a reason for one to be a good or bad leader. And how does this happen? It even starts in childhood. The way many of us, especially the older folk, I don't know about the younger generation, we were brought up both in terms of our culture and also religion to embrace discipline by fear. And that fear actually builds in one from when one is very young. Something which is really quite important when it comes to undermining your own ability to lead. So I may be president of a country, I may be president of a corporation, but that little child in me still has that element of fear. And I have observed actually very senior people in deals, very straightforward deals between donors and receiving governments, for instance. And one can see how a great deal of concessions are made by African government leaders, not even because they have been bribed, but because they don't have the moral courage and the emotional fortitude to actually say, no, let's negotiate. What is in it for you? What is in it for my people? That little child controlling us. And this happens, psychologists will then tell you that in our brain, we have, among other things, the primitive brain. And we have ego. We have things that we have been imbued with that are meant to protect us. But then when they are not governed, they overprotect us, and in the end they become a problem.
And absolutely.
And and you see, remember when Michael Tyson bit off the ear of Evander Holyfield? See, I don't think he pre-planned it. The guy may have had certain problems on the street where he kept being bashed and being defeated. And for a moment...
something snapped.
Something snapped. And it's called amygdala hijack. And really, once we understand, you and I understand how our mind and body works, then you have the power for empowerment, what I call authentic self-empowerment. You begin to know who you are. And I actually do have tools for that. I would give you a mind-body questionnaire, for instance, and say, okay, fill it out. It's very simple, straightforward questions. And the more effectively, the more realistically you fill it out, the more accurately, the better the feedback
the better the feedback you're going to get. We're going to pick up on that and just talk about building that moral fortitude and dealing with that inner child.
Absolutely.
Especially when you're already in a position. Because I think it's probably harder. It'll be easier to get me to do it.
Exactly.
I'm not in a leadership position. And we're going to take calls as well on 0891104207. SMSs 34701.
Morning Talk on SAFM.
Talking about leadership, but self-management, understanding your mind, body, health and well-being, and how all of those three things are going to influence you in your leadership position. We're going to take your calls as well on 0891104207, SMSs to 34701. Self-discovery must be something very difficult for an individual to do when they are further along in their life. Would you agree with that?
Well, I would agree, but also, speaking for myself, those who know me, I believe I have two kinds of people in my life. Those who like me, and those may be few and far between, and those who would see me as, the Iron Lady. Now, when they would tell me, scholar, or make Kimaryo, as they would say, you've burnt the village, I said, which village? Or when I heard them saying, who does she think she is? I'm looking and thinking, who are they talking about? Then I thought, why is there a gap between how I'm perceived and how I perceive myself?
You perceive yourself,
And that's how I started reading up on this stuff, because that disjuncture was always there. And the other thing which, as a leader, challenged me was how you come to a staff meeting and very nice things are said and agreed upon, but then you get out, the corridor talk is very different. And my challenge was, as a leader, how can I help myself and staff to make sure that we are so honest, vulnerable enough and safe to be able to say the truth at the negotiating table rather than saying these things on the corridor.
In the corridor, and when you get in there, that inner child drops in.
Exactly. And it's unhealthy. And that's how I came to know about the issues of stress and the issues of how when you come to work, you and I bring ourselves and the baggage of how we've been brought up. And one of my challenges was I was brought up as a Roman Catholic. In those days, I was told, I remember as a child, only Roman Catholics went to heaven. And St. Peter's was at the gate of heaven, checking in only us, Yeah. And then everything was either right or wrong, black or white. Now, those things really did influence my leadership. I struggled with them. There are so many compromises demanded of you at work. And my question was, how can I become a principle-centered leader without stepping on so many toes? Is it even possible? What does it take? And how do I then compromise on strategy rather than on principle? So that, and struggling with things being right, is it okay for to allow other points of view? And I really struggled with those things. And as I learned, as I studied, as I read up, I started going to the library to read up on mind-body health, on philosophy, on psychology, on how the mind works. And I began to see myself, and times when I now knew I was getting, when I was tired or I was being challenged and I was now going to strike out.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to do it. And I said to myself, I have to find a way of how. It's not enough to know. It's important to have the tools.
Yeah.
And that is really what inspired me to go back to university upon retirement. At age 61, I went back to university to learn for two reasons.
Yeah.
One, I wanted for my own self-healing and catharsis. Admitting that it does have its toll. To be a principle-centered leader, to be a good leader, takes a big toll. Secondly, I know there are many other leaders who want to do the right thing and who want to remain healthy, but they don't know how. And I wanted to be there for them, especially women. We don't have clubs, we don't go to the golf club, we don't have this, boys have been taught how to do these things from when they are playing in the field. They play a competitive sport.
Yeah.
We play community supportive roles. So this is how I really then had to go and learn how to discover myself. I didn't like many of the things I saw.
That's what I was about to ask you, because very few people, firstly, even recognize that there is a difference, or that other people perceive them differently to the way that they perceive themselves. Very few people even think about that to start off with.
Yes.
And then once you do think about that, it actually can be quite jarring.
Yes, it was. It has been. And it's really a journey. It's a lifelong journey, but I'm really... At the beginning, it was very jarring because I then looked back. First of all, I brought up my children as my mother brought me up, strict, straight and narrow. And now I'm like, oops.
What did I do to them?
What did I do to my poor kids? And then I looked at my staff. I said, okay, let me evaluate. Was I really such an iron lady? And if I was, what was it? And I really came to realize the things that people are saying. For instance, I started telling you about a questionnaire. One of the things the questionnaire shows you is your mind-body type at conception. And we can either be A, B, or C. It's based on Ayurveda. You can either be a Vata, which means you are a very creative mind and you are innovative and you are spontaneous, but you don't like routine. That's who you are.
Yeah.
You see, and such people, to know that is wonderful. Because then you can say, look, this I can do, this I don't like, and if you give it to me, it won't happen.
It's not going to happen, yeah.
Then there are those who are called Pitters, Pitta. And they are strong leaders. They are, very talkative. They are not the world diplomats. They just are
just
not.
Don't make them an ambassador.
No. And if you do, you know to take the risk.
Yeah.
But when they're in balance, they are good leaders.
Yeah.
But when they're out of balance, they are angry, they are irritable, they are judgmental. Nothing you do is good enough for them. And then the third one is called Kapha, Kapha. And those ones, they are solid, they are loyal, they like routine, and they can deliver. But when they are out of balance, they withdraw, they become inert, they become dependent. And you wonder, that dynamic person, what happened to that dynamic person? Why are they hiding? Now, for me to know those three things, I realized that when I was out of balance, I was Peter out of balance. So if you met Madam angry, irritable, judgmental, nothing is good enough for them. And I was like, oops, that's when I burnt the villages. Oh, God, forgive me. And really, I have done a lot to actually, first of all, ask for forgiveness. It's part of healing from my children, from my family. And, we had a mass at home, and I said to people, this is the journey and the difference between the village, women going to work, and just educating people and saying, I'm sorry for my part and I forgive you for your part.
And also not seeing it as a weakness to say, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, it is so healing.
Because with leaders, one does find sometimes that the word sorry,
forgive me,
is not in the dictionary.
It's not.
Or the vocabulary.
I can't pretend that it was in my vocabulary when I was leading. I don't remember how many times. And always, honestly, I mean, it's very important to ask for forgiveness for yourself.
Yeah.
Because you and I are the most critical of ourselves. Nobody criticizes you and I as you and I criticize ourselves. And then to say sorry to the other person, because it's to acknowledge, first of all, their Ubuntu. And to say, okay, when I screamed at you, it wasn't about you. I just have had a bad morning. And even if it is later, but to not let it pass altogether. And I honestly feel that as part of my forgiveness begging, it's very healing, even for cancers, by the way. High blood pressure, cancers, sugar diabetes, all this so-called obesity. These are lifestyle diseases. They are caused by when one has too much stress. It causes chemical imbalances in the mind and body, and it causes us to make very unnourishing choices, including alcoholism, including drug abuse. And one of the things we know is to acknowledge that is very healing. And then to ask for forgiveness for those who you will have hurt, knowingly or not, is not the issue.
So often we're treating just the symptoms. When you are, when you have high blood pressure, hypertension, you go and you get the medication, but you're not looking at what's going on in your mind that might have led to this.
Absolutely. And actually, we know that chronic medication taken over a long time causes more problems in the body, which is why on the healing side, if I'm working with a client who actually is on long-term medication, there are things we recommend. Once you fill out that questionnaire, it's actually a lot of fun because it also tells you what is wrong. Mind and body.
At this question, it sounds very scary. There's certain
I brought
things I don't
you
want to
one.
know.
I leave it with you to look at and fill it out. But frankly, it's true. It's quite unnerving. But once you manage to fill it out, then you are like, wow.
Yeah.
I met myself for the first time, my true self, at age 61. It's not correct. So, and what causes pressure is people going around pretending they are able to do what they are supposed to do when they are not coping.
When you're not coping.
And we can see in our leaders, we can see people getting strokes. We can see, people getting very sick. And it's all curable. The good thing about it is God created us in such a way that you and I, within 3 years, all the cells in our body, including in our bones, will be new. So why do we age?
Yeah.
We age because we don't deal with toxicity in the mind and toxicity in the body. And dealing with toxicity in the mind and body is what makes the spiritual connection. And that's how you get spontaneous healing. It is possible to heal from these things over time.
And we're going to talk a bit about that. But one of the things, and I suppose this probably applies to people in leadership as well, one thing I struggle with is asking for help.
Yes. I would be very interested to see the outcome of your questionnaire, because many of us can relate to that.
Yeah.
And some of it is how we were born. Like, the Peters are really quite strong leaders, and therefore it's not easy for them to ask for help.
Yeah.
And once you know that, then it's also an area of growth. You can begin to learn to ask for help. And you know how relieved people become when you ask for help. And I think that's why, when... And actually, I have to say, women leaders are judged more harshly when they are strong leaders than men. Look around.
Yeah.
Even in recent history.
But do you have to allow that to impact on your performance and what you will or will not do? Why is it difficult? Why is it easy for people to be influenced by what other people do or say about them?
Oh, that is such an important question. You and I have been brought up, honestly, to please people. Think about it. The whole system, when you're at home, their parents even would go as far as say, you see, your sister is doing much better than you. In school, the grades in school is very competitive, and you are working. These things bring you up to want to please. Even not only to please, but to comply. They teach compliance. Even the instruments at work, performance evaluation, is for compliance. So in the end, we live in an environment that expects you to respond to, am I doing good enough by your standards? And it takes a relearning, which is why I honestly have started on this as a mission. I said to God, I will spend a balance of my life helping people to realize that there is an alternative way. There are choices. Anything you do is a choice you make, which was the basis of your question. You do have a choice, but the question is, do you have the moral courage and the emotional fortitude and the knowledge to know how to make that choice and be okay with it?
But as you said, it starts with firstly understanding yourself and where you fit in.
Absolutely.
So then how do you build that emotional fortitude and the courage?
It's actually, it's quite easy. It's a process. The first one is, first of all, to understand who you are, just by filling out an instrument. Many people, some of the listeners will have filled out the personality type questionnaires. The mind-body type questionnaire is kind of similar, but it is based on questions which then, when we go back to them. When you give me back the questionnaire and I interpret it for you, you then will see what are your strengths and what is out of balance currently, and then what you can do about it. The first session is know thyself. And once you know thyself, you start singing, and
you look at the way you react to things.
And you start laughing at yourself. And I have done this. I do this also as team building, through conscious leadership and healthy lifestyles. And when I have a manager with his or her team, they share their their mind-body types. People laugh at each other and laugh with each other. And then instead of saying, Scholastica is this and that, my staff could then say, Kimaryo, are you now Vata deranged? And we laugh about it, because when you acknowledge that, you are able to have compassion. It is easier not to personalize. So not only do you reduce the number of sick leave days in a workplace, the conversation, the relationships at the workplace change. People are less under pressure to wear masks and more at liberty to acknowledge, to say, today I'm Vata deranged. You better let me off.
Just let me off. And I love what you say about masks. We wear masks all the time, and sometimes we're not even aware of it.
And that's what hurts us. That's how the issues go down in the tissues, and they build diseases. They become diseases. And to unlearn that, once you unlearn, once you learn that this is what is happening, then you are able to become your own therapist. You say, I'm beginning to, get angry. There are usually signs.
Yeah.
And then you become your own healer.
We're going to pick up on that and take calls, and there's a couple of SMSs that have come through as well. We'll deal with those in a moment in conversation with Scholastica Sylvan Kimaryo, who is founder and CEO of Maadili Consulting and Lifestyle Coaching. She's also the former UNDP's Deputy Regional Director for Africa.
Morning Talk with Siki Mgabadeli.
And it's 24 minutes to midday, talking about managing, focusing on your mind, your body, and of course your well-being, and how that influences the type of leader that you will be. Just to remind you, still to come here on Morning Talk is our morning book reading. It's the Nelson Mandela Story by Anne-Marie Dupré-Besdrop, and it's read by Linda Ningosi. But right now, in conversation with Scholastica Sylvan Kimaryo, who's founder and CEO of Maadili Consulting and Lifestyle Coaching, and learning a lot about ourselves this morning. Here's an SMS. It says, how did your guest arrive where she is today?
I arrived where I am today by God's grace, I have to say, because I was the first girl in my village to go beyond primary school. And that's because my late mother, she just passed away recently at 91 plus. Her father was the only teacher in our village.
Wow.
And so his children went to school, and my mother was literate. And that's her influence, really.
Yeah.
But I also think I got where I am through the school of hard knocks. I definitely know that the very strong background I had from Catholic school upbringing was very important in making me disciplined, focused, hardworking, conscientious, giving me a lot of guilt, and therefore also being, an AA sort of character, very stress prone, and that is how I then, in looking to see how can I manage my own stress, and therefore, how can I manage the stress of staff? Really kept pushing me. And then having compassion that if only I had somebody I could talk to, my mother wouldn't understand. And the kind of issues that I was dealing with were not necessarily addressed just by, the kind of traditional coaching. And now, thankfully, many more people are focusing on mind-body health.
I was actually going to ask you that question because there is obviously the traditional coaching that we've seen, and it's a growth industry worldwide. How this differs from that. I mean, I went for 2 sessions of traditional coaching and never went back. I just couldn't. I didn't relate to it.
Yes, you see, I learned this. Ultimately, I went to the Chopra Center University in California, in the USA, to learn about mind-body medicine through Ayurveda, which is an ancient science, more than 5,000 years old, combining with modern medicine and knowledge about, quantum physics and all of those things. And what we do, the way it is different is that, first of all, we believe everybody was built with the capability and the knowledge to lead their lives perfectly if they are given a chance. Secondly, that if you give somebody basic knowledge about themselves, they can take themselves to their highest potential. So we start by the analysis, you yourself, putting down who you are, and actually you find you are very smart at that. I just interpret it for you. And then I take through a process of how to use food as medicine.
Okay.
And the thing about giving people knowledge is that most of us were educated in informal and informal ways to depend on somebody else to solve a problem for you. So what we do is to give you the knowledge that you are the only one who you have been waiting for, who can actually not only resolve your problems but be brilliant.
I love that. You are the only one you've been waiting
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly. And this thing of depending on others is not helpful. Then we also take you through a process of how to manage your routine. Your daily routine, when you wake up, when you eat, when you go to bed, and why, the daily routine, how it can nurture you rather than keeping you running from pillar to post.
Yeah.
And then very importantly, how to understand and manage stress, how to establish intimacy with yourself. Intimacy, into me, I see. You see? And then finally, we teach you how to use the 5 senses for healing. It's fantastic. It's fun. And then you start the journey.
Yeah.
Because then you begin to, I'm feeling uncomfortable. Your body is the best computer God gave us to give us feedback. You always know what is at stake. But by the time you come asking for advice, you know the answer. You don't like it. You want somebody else to confirm what you would rather
what you also know about yourself.
Absolutely.
Like I said, we like to escape ourselves.
Yes.
We escape, and we all escape in different ways.
Yes.
Not spending a lot of time with just doing nothing and being by yourself.
It's true.
If you think about it, there's the noise always, whether there's
true.
a television around, a radio, or you are reading, or you are doing something else. You just being just by yourself is probably one of the hardest.
We have been brought up to become human doings instead of becoming human beings. And this helps us to go back there.
All right, I'm under lots of pressure to give out your contact details. So the kind of stuff that you do is for both, you would do a group or an individual,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
All right. Let me give out contact details before I get shouted at. Calls and SMSs asking for that, and tweets. So the number is, I'm going to give out your mobile number, 072 212 9572, or you can send an email to SS Kimaryo, and that's spelled SSKIMARYO .healthylifestyles at MAADI. Am I spelling this right? LIMAADILI.net. All right, we'll also put it up on our Facebook page and the website as well, so you get those details. Let's just take a quick call, if you can put on your headphones for us. Nell in Bloemfontein. Morning, Nell.
Shiki, it's Nell in Bloem.
Hi.
You did say something about your body being the best computer to tell you how you feel and what. But now when you sometimes feel depressed and you listen to people saying you're antisocial, at the moment you're feeling whatever you feel, and you try and pull yourself out of the people and the surroundings and whatnot. So how do you break out of that?
All right. Thanks, Nell. Do you want to listen on the radio for me?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Nell. What I usually tell people from the principles of Ayurveda is that it's very important for you and I to respect our bodies. Listen to your body and do what your body says. So if your body says retreat, you just ask for forgiveness from the people to say, look, I need alone space.
I need me time.
I need me time. And for you not to feel apologetic or guilty about it. And then during your me time, I also teach people how to breathe. Their breathing is a very, very anchoring process. I teach people how to do that, and I also teach people how to meditate, which means to quiet the mind. Yeah. To the extent that over time you are able to, reach your inner self, and that's how your self-confidence begins to rebuild. It's quite amazing. But yes, from now on, honor the feelings in your body and do what the body says. And whoever says, they can say what they want, but you really need to honor your body. And that's okay.
You've got to live with yourself.
Absolutely.
We're going to have to leave it there, but some great SMSs. Lufuno in East London saying, what a wonderful lady you are speaking to. How can I have the questionnaire? So I'll give out your contact details again. And someone says, I believe that fear, especially of the unknown, has limited Africans in discovery because we were brought up not to question, but to believe leave with proof. So those being some of the SMSs that have been sent through. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure.